All right. I guess my microphone works already. Welcome everyone to Explain Everything Hands-On webinar. So here's what we're going to do today. During those sessions, hands-on sessions, we're happy to take your questions and answer all of them, including demonstrations in real time. So I'm about to start this sessions to open it for those that want to join me collaboratively using Explain Everything. I'll soon show you the link. But in the meantime, if you'd like just to ask questions on chat, you can do that. We can pick those and answer them one by one. But I encourage you to try to collaborate with us. Although we created a solution to work with small groups, I'm sure even above 6 participants would be okay. All right, so that's the code here. So basically, I'm sure you know where to look for code. It's in this corner of the screen, but I'll type it here. All right, so anyone that wants to join me, please use this code, and I can also show you how to use this code if you go to Explain Everything. I'm on iPad, so that's quite easy. On the front screen of the app, you can just use the join button in order to type in the code and join me on the session. But if you're using browser, let's say, go to explaineverything.com. Oh, that's a mobile version. But here in the menu, you have enter code, and you can use the same code to join me on this session. And I see first users coming up. You can tell that by icons in this top right corner. And let's do the following. For this webinar, let's just mute microphones on Explain Everything so we can talk through Zoom, not through Zoom and Explain Everything. That would be too much for one session. Okay. Fantastic. So I encourage you to raise questions, ask questions on the chat, or join this session here and ask those questions. Also during the collaborative session on Explain Everything. And you might already know, but we do have another webinar that goes through the entire Explain Everything experience. It's called Essentials. I'll show you where to register to that webinar. So on the bottom of the screen, there's check out webinars section. So today we're doing that hands-on webinar, but you can also have a look at this one. It's like 25 minutes long, where we go through the entire process of starting with creating visuals, then sharing those, opening for feedback, and also collaborating. So that's quite interesting. And those sessions are much more often than hands-on webinar, but due to the demand, we do have another hands-on session, a hands-on webinar also this week. So we're happy that that you joined us for this one, and I hope that more users will also join us on Thursday. I believe we do have one on Thursday or Friday. You can always check here. What are the open dates for the webinars? Okay, so we do have a question, what to do with the code on the screen. So you can use this code if you have an app, or use this code on Explain Everything website. So if you go to Explain Everything, here my browser is showing a mobile version of the website. That's why it's not showing this top navigation bar, but I can click on the hamburger menu and you can put the code in here. So once you do that, you will immediately connect to this collaboration, so we can do what I'm showing on this screen together. And the good thing about collaboration, Explain Everything, is that we provide the same set of tools to any participant. So it's not just me showing, it's all users basically with the same ability to create, manipulate objects, or even record, which I'm happy to show today. But if you're using app, then you can use join button on the app itself to join the session. And you don't have to be even a registered user. There's a join section on the registration screen as well. You can join from iPad app or Android app. Okay. So we have now 2 users that join me on the session. Welcome. And interesting thing, if you have someone that joins as explainer, that's not an object that I wanted. As explainer, that means this person here joined from a web browser. The thing with Explain Everything is that if you want to present using whiteboard and perhaps you don't have access to the screen or Beamer, you can always open the session as I did and ask others to use the code as you do now to join me on the session. And then you can use Explain Everything for presenting, because we do have set of tools that allows participants to follow you as a host. And therefore the presentation, even of a simple set of slides, could be much more powerful in terms of visuals that you can spawn on spot or ask the screen or manipulate. So as we see now, we all have this similar set of tools on this right side here. And therefore, sometimes when many users join the session, it seems a bit of chaos because people like to play a lot with the tools, but that's okay for today, so don't worry. Try everything which you can. Try those tools are mainly for creation. Just this tool here, this X button, is for deletion of objects. So you might want to be careful with that one. And still people joining in. I'll show you something. I don't want to overwhelm you, but this is like a set of elemental skills that I listed you might be interested in. And we can cover some of those if you'd like to learn more. So for those that are joining, please try to use highlighter here. That's the tool here. And highlight the skills that you're most interested in. And in the meantime, when you'll be browsing through the screen and looking for the things that you're interested in, I'll tell you how we think about proficiency of users on Explain Everything. Because for us, it's kind of like a process of getting first familiar with the tools to visualize this set of tools here. Because obviously you can start with blank canvas and then try to write or draw like on a flip chart or just physical whiteboard. So this set of tools that we have here is it's all about the mastery of how to visualize, draw, write, type on the screen, and also present your screen to the audience using a strong screen mode. So I counted those skills as a set of, let's say, 30 skills here. And once you're familiar, well, it's important to notice that you don't have to know all of them. This is quite a bit. This is the most innovative and most advanced whiteboard. That's why there are so many skills to master. But to be honest, if you know like 6 basic stuff, you're able to visualize anything you want to visualize. You don't have to know all the 30 skills that I listed here. And from my perspective, the things that are needed for those that begin with Explain Everything is ability to use Zoom, draw. Now I'm using highlighter, but the drawing is very, very similar. Maybe changing thickness, using eraser, moving objects around. Yeah, and perhaps using external screen mode. And having those 6 basic skills, you're able to present with whiteboard in a way that will be visually interesting for the audience. But that's the first step on the path. The other step is using media to tell the story, because with the Flipchart, you don't have possibility to bring in materials, but with the digital devices, any digital content that you have on the device or in the cloud can be brought to the canvas and used for purpose of enriching your presentation. And that's why we've listed here set of skills that are allowing you to do that, starting from adding documents, objects, images, audio files or videos, and manipulating those. Some things you can bring to the canvas by removing background or cropping them. You can replicate elements of documents that you're bringing in. You can even use web browser, as I did when I showed you where to put the code to join this collaborative session. So this is like a second step on the path toward proficiency, using media to tell the story with this set of skills. And then it's getting easier, it seems, as this is a third area which we love, to be honest, because Explain Everything is one of the whiteboards that allows you to record everything that is happening on the screen. And it's not going to be, the result of that is not as on Zoom, it's not a video file, it's actually a capture of all the manipulations that user performed during recording. So those manipulations can be changed, can be enriched, and then can be, as a result, shared as a movie or as a session. So that's the third step of the path toward proficiency. And the fourth one is sharing, where the results of what is on the whiteboard can be shared with others as a video or project or even a GIF. So those are 4 elemental skills that are for that. And the last step on the path are skills necessary to collaborate as we collaborate now. So when you look at this map here, I tried to mark with different gradients of blue of the proficiency level, what is demanded from the user in terms of like using those skills. Most of them are very basic. That's the level number 1 and 2. Some of them are complicated, and why they're complicated, because sometimes you need to go to the settings or preferences to change something, to activate something. All right, so knowing that, let's move on to the questions. Let me see, I'll use Zoom tool to zoom around. And as you see here, those frames on the screen, they display what collaborators, those participants of the session see. So I can tell that most of the collaborators are looking at this set of elemental skills. One of them is looking at this cover with the code, with a screen in portrait mode. So that's very interesting. There's actually something that you can turn in settings. I'll show you here. So that's the setting here, participants, zoom, frames. Those settings, this is quite useful because if I turn it off, I cannot really tell where my participants on what they are looking. So by turning it on, it makes a difference for me to understand where is the focus. So and I'll show you one thing more. So if we all look at this main section of the screen, I can use Zoom tool to navigate everyone's attention to one spot. So for that, if you look at the lower corner of my screen through Zoom session, you'll notice that I'm turning off this ninja mode here. And when I turn it off and I use Zoom, I'll kind of manipulate your viewpoints. So every participant of the session should, like, follow my perspective when I do that. So let's do the following. Using this part of the screen here, let's put questions that you guys have using text objects, okay? So instead of chat window on Zoom, let's use this object here. So I select this tool, the A letter on the left side of my screen. I tap on the empty part of the screen to activate type tool, and we'll put here, please type in your questions here. I can, of course, change the size of my font. All right, and I see first questions coming up. No, I can tell this is a very good question. Unfortunately, I won't be able to demonstrate that on collaboration because camera would not work with Zoom in the background in collaborative mode, but there's certainly a power of explaining everything to, to be used when recording yourself during the lesson. So let's start with that, and let's wait for other questions to arrive. So question is, how to use Explain Everything to record yourself when teaching. And my initial question to you is, would you like to be visible on the canvas when recording yourself manipulating objects? Okay, cool. All right. So Explain Everything is actually designed to make recording easy. And I'll try to do it collaboratively once we have all those questions in here. But basically, it all comes down to using record button here. Please don't try it now. Let me first explain, then demonstrate. Record button here allows you to turn on the recording mode and Explain Everything that will sort of capture everything that is being said or done on the screen. And if you're teaching the lesson live, this requires a bit of skills in order to, like, create interesting video material out of this. We prefer to at first, and that's what we suggest to users to do video recordings and two goes. First, let's say record audio, and then having audio in, add manipulations. But of course, if you'd like to try to record everything at once, you can. And then the result of that can be shared as a movie. So I'll try to show you this. I'll take this question aside, and I'll create a new slide. And in order to create a new slide, I used this button here in Slide Sorter to add a new slide. So I'll go to the new slide now. And I'll try to make a new recording on this iPad. So I'll have to unmute myself in order to record audio. So for now, let's try to record just movement on the screen. So let's say I will add at least 2 objects just to demonstrate. Okay, and I can move those objects with my fingers. So this movement is something I want Explain Everything to capture along with my, let's say, annotation. So this is going to be an artificial demonstration of the recording, but bear with me for a second. I'm going to hit record on the lower section of the screen. I did this now, and I moved those 2 rectangles. And now I turned recording off. And as you see, timeline opened on the bottom of the screen. This means that I can browse through this recording. It's just on the second slide because everyone is on the first slide. I believe when I turned on the recording, everyone got to the second slide. Let me see. Oh yeah, that's how it works. So I can now go back to the beginning of the recording by rewinding, and I can play it back. And you see this movement of those 2 objects was captured by Explain Everything. Explain Everything, it's marvelous if you try to make your recording more interesting by adding to it. So I can, again, go back to the very beginning, and now I'll try to record again, but this time writing on top of those objects that I moved on the previous attempt. So I'm going to add additional layer to the existing recording. And I can do this because we do have those modes. This is like a mix mode. So everything I'll do on the screen once I hit record will also be captured. So bear with me, I'm hitting record here. Here it is. So as you see now, I stopped the recording. It's a very simple 5-second long recording. Now Explain Everything remembers movement of those 2 rectangles together with all of my pen strokes. And those strokes are visible on the timeline. So if I rewind, you can see them coming. Or if I play it back, you see them coming. So now you can imagine doing that on the lesson when you present. First, you hit record. You unmute your microphone here in order to be for Explain Everything to capture your voice as well in the voice track, which is this lower track here. It's empty. It's visible on the bottom of the screen. That's the voice track. But since we're muted, it could not capture my voice. And by that, you'll create a recording that can be shared with your students later on using this export button here. On the top right corner, I just hit export button, and you can create web video link or export your video as a file. Now, if you're using Explain Everything in school, you might be using EDU version that cannot work with our cloud. That means this first option to create web video link will not be visible, but then you still can export this movie by rendering it on the device to your camera roll, and then export this file by, let's say, uploading it to YouTube or any other storage space, cloud storage space, or your LMS system for others to see. All this cloud space that we provide allows those presentations that are recorded with Explain Everything to render directly in the cloud. So what you get, it's a link that can be then shared with students. Okay, so I'll come back to the first slide here. Okay. And I hope that I answered this question. If that's a full answer, please leave a tick. If not, ask additional question. I'm happy to demonstrate further. And now I move to another question. So you can see my viewpoint on Zoom, while other participants can work on second or third slide in this session of ours. So that's quite interesting. Explain Everything allows you to do that. You can think about using it with students, then that you have a group project, let's say, and students are working on different slides when solving a thing on a one group can solve something on a slide number 1, the other can work on slide number 2, and you as a teacher can go between slides and see the progress. Here's another question. When recording is the iPad your favorite tool? Yes, I must admit I'm biased. We started with iPads, so that's why iPad version of our app was the first one. Of course, there's great gear coming from Google and Samsung, so we do have an Android version as well, also the Chrome version, but personally I'm using iPad most often as I like the experience of overall operating system. What we try to do with our product is to keep it very similar between platforms, although we cannot fully implement the same user experience because of the differences in underlying operating system. That's why you might see that when you're importing slides like here, or where you're using some specific features of Explain Everything, there you'll find some differences, but our goal is to minimize those differences. So we're on track to make a feature parity between the platforms, and currently those platforms are iOS, Google, these are both Android and Chrome OS, and of course, web. With web, it's quite interesting because there are not so many devices yet with multi-touch technology, although our version of Explain Everything with Routes in browser, it's already quite powerful. My suggestion is when you try to connect, try to use Chrome browser at that time. So Chrome browser. It is because when we're developing Explain Everything, we're trying to make it first for Chrome, then later for other platforms. So I hope I answered this question as well. Please leave a tick if you're satisfied with the answer. Let me go and answer another one. Our PLC is planning to use Explain Everything to redo flipped videos for our biology class. Suggestions to make it the best for student teachers. Can you do the visual first and then go back and do the audio? Of course you can. Of course you can. And sometimes there are situations where you have audio and then you add visuals. So you can go back and forth and whatever suits you, honestly. We developed those tools in the timeline that allows you even to trim the video and remove empty spots in the timeline, I encourage you to use the Help Center when learning about video editing, as we do have a very good resource about that. So let me show you recording. I'll try to find it by search, introduction to recording. I guess that would be a good one. So we do have those articles that are visible or also in support on our website. I'll do one thing more so you can see my tabs. That might help you. Here's an option to display on-screen taps and gestures. So whenever I tap on button now, you'll see, right? So getting back to Help Center and showing you the article on recording. So here you have on the top of my screen, you see introduction to recording. This is an extensive article that describes how recording happens, how recording functionality works. But that's not all that we have about recording, because you have here article about editing recording, including description of all timeline editing features with the video. And I'll play a piece of that video to you and try to, you can see through your Zoom session and try to guess how we created this video here, illustrating, explain everything. And I'm sure it's easy to discover the answer. We of course created this video using Explain Everything. So we literally explain our app using our app. So this video is like 3 minutes long. I won't play it now, but if you're interested in learning more, my suggestion is to use this resource. I'll put a screenshot of this to the canvas, and I'll also show you how to find it when using browser. So I'll take your question. I'll change its size and I'll link resources to it. So that's the article seen in the app, but I need a browser to show you what it is in the support section. So here's the browser. So if you go to explaineverything.com/support, and you search for recording, you'll find the same set of articles. So that was edit recording here. And those videos could play here as well. All right. So I hope I gave full answer to this question as well. And just to repeat, I would do the audio first and then visuals, but you can do it in reverse order as well. Is it possible to move objects in the timeline? I wish it was possible already. It's not yet possible, but we will soon fix that. So there will be a version where it's going to be possible. So my answer for now is not yet, sorry. But we're working on that, so you can hold me accountable. We'll soon have a version that will allow that. Looking for instructions how to share a finished recording. Used to, oh, thank you. Used to upload to YouTube. Is there another way? Yes, we have a cloud space where each user can upload videos, upload projects. So there's a difference between like spaces as YouTube or Vimeo or others, because they provide possibility of uploading video and then streaming that video. And when you finish your recording, you explain everything, you actually have a project. And for some users, it is good to still have a project. Explain everything project instead of video. This project should render a video, and that's what we do in our cloud to make the whole process of potential changes to the project possible. Because if you think about it, if you render a video and upload it to YouTube, there's no way to change it. But if you upload your project to our cloud, you still can access this project and do the corrections. So let's say there's a similar course next year that you'll do, but you have an ideas for improvements. You can download this project. It still plays as a video from the previous year, but you can download the project, implement corrections, and create another link for the video. And by that, step by step, you can improve on your creation without like losing this source project that is still explain everything with all of those manipulations that you can change, and soon also move objects on the timeline. So I encourage you to try that. So there are, just to give you a full answer, you can use YouTube, you can use Explain Everything Cloud, and that's in the subscription offering. If you're using version EEEDU version, you can render video on the device, export to file. Once you have your video as a file in the camera roll, you can upload it where you only want to any cloud solution, really, for streaming to the users. And of course, just to mention one more thing, you can also export files in this subscription version. So you can bypass the cloud if you like to. All right. Looking for another question. I didn't see more questions here. I'll try to check on our chat as well. Can we go over the Zoom tool a bit more in the webinar? Of course. So let's speak about the Zoom tool. And that's from Cornelia. Thanks for the question, Cornelia. The Zoom tool is something that I can discuss today, although I have to mention that we're going to simplify the experience of using the Zoom tool. So the knowledge from today's session will kind of be obsolete a month or two to come. So, so this is like a heads up. We know that it's a very powerful tool because Zoom is something that combines two functions, really. A function to move around the screen, and a function to move around the camera. So think about it that way. Screen, that's your view. That's one thing that is possible to do with the Zoom tool. And camera frame for recording. That's the second thing. And we notice that it's quite confusing for users when those two features are actually combined in one tool. That's why we're going to change the experience quite a bit in order to make it simple and easy to understand. But I'll tell you for now how the Zoom tool works. So I'll try to get everyone in one place now here. Okay. I'll take a screenshot of my screen in order to tell you about the Zoom. So I basically made a screenshot of my iPad of this UI element to bring it back to the canvas so I can annotate it. Now the Zoom tool has zoom level here. We're on 100% now, so good, that's zoom level. And has this ninja mode. Why ninja? Because we figured that, you know, those guys were clever enough to sneak around without anyone noticing. That's why when you use this ninja mode, that means if you're changing your perspective, no one else is following you. And you can tell that by this, the frames of remaining participants on our webinar. Everyone is looking somewhere here, right? And I'm changing my focus on, let's say, looking at those skills. And no one notices that as I'm using the ninja mode. There is a lock button. This lock button is useful for recording. So you can lock your view and record certain and zoom into the certain area of your screen in order to write in that area. But I encourage you to wait another month so we can implement simplification of that element so there'll be no lock button anymore. I can try to dive into that and show you how it works on the recording, but since we're going to simplify this, if you can wait, my suggestion is to wait because we have a very good design that will make your life much easier. So that's one thing. And also, it's one additional comment here. When you're looking at slide number 1, I'm on slide number 1, and your participants are in different slides, on different slides. And let's say that's your lesson with students and everyone is looking at different things. It's hard today to gather everyone on one slide. You would have to press record to do that. So we noticed this problem, and that's why with the new design, there'll be an option for everyone to follow you as a teacher without any complications. So this feature here is missing, although if you look at the component, it's quite complex. So we're making it easier and adding functions at the same time. All right. And there's another question that's from Karl Heinz. He wants to explain everything to his colleagues, and he asks for a copy of the overview from the first slide after the webinar. I'm happy to supply you with this, of course, but just one notice, this is a work in progress, and it might end up as a template that would be supplied with an app. So if you guys are interested in this, please let us know, because we're still working on making those things easy to understand. And we're thinking of doing this project as a template and supply it with videos to illustrate each of those elemental skills. So if you like that, please share your perspective on this idea using either this collaborative session or on chat. That will help us a lot. This is something we put together for today, so it's brand new. Moving to another question, can I set the video, make some annotations over it, and then continue the video from that point? Absolutely, and let me show you that. So I'll move to slide number 2. And yeah, we're on slide 2. And let's say this is like a 5-second long recording. So I'll try to scroll to the second number 2, just to illustrate that you can annotate when the recording is on pause. So that's second number 2. And I'll put here a new object and write second number 2. All right. What I can do also is to make it more fancy by filling it in with yellow color, let's say. And since I created this object on a second number 2, if I zoom in, you'll notice that there's new element here. And here it's a plus. That means this element just appears on this second. So if I move back to the very beginning, you won't see this new object that I added. But if I play it, look what happened on second number 2. There's this element. So absolutely, you can pause and add elements that you like to the canvas, but bear in mind that they will appear at this very second when you added them. So if you make a mistake, let's say, and you add something new at the very end of the recording, I just moved to the second number 6. And here, I'll add, what can I add here? This G here. Okay, this object, as you see on the timeline, is only visible at the end of the recording. So if I scroll back, it's not here. Okay, so you have to go to the very end of the recording to see this object. And this is sometimes confusing for users. Why did my object disappear? And maybe they are not in the very beginning of the presentation, and they just appear somewhere at the very end. The other thing that I'd like you to see also, because this is quite often a confusion point. If you do the recording now, I'll hit the recording and I'll record additional few seconds of moving this G object here. Stop the recording. You see on the timeline, there's a hand symbol that indicates that I was moving something between 8th and 11th second, which is great. But I can now, let's say I'll scroll to this 11th second and delete G. Okay. As you see on the timeline, it was indicated, this deletion was indicated with this red icon here after my movement. And this is kind of counterintuitive, but you can delete deletion. That means if you delete this red icon here, the G will again be visible after this point of time. So I'll delete it and you see it's back. So this is something that you might find interesting. If you like to remove objects, you can, but then you can remove sort of removal, so to say. Okay, getting back to the chat. I'm looking at your questions. Okay, and pausing and stopping. There's a question about pausing and stopping recording. Actually, it's the same for us. Pausing or stopping is the same. So when you pause recording, we kind of don't capture input and don't capture audio, but you can then resume your recording. It's similar with recording and playing recording back. So if I scroll to the very front, to the very beginning of the recording, if I play it back here, you'll see that my tools that are usually on the left side are not visible because it's a playback. I'm not allowed to provide any additional input. But it's just the same if I scroll to the beginning as I did now and hit record in this mix mode. It plays as it was before, although I do have the tools so I can add additional movement like with this blue rectangle here. So you could say technically that recording, mixed recording, it's similar to play if you don't provide movements. It's quite specific. What we deal here, this recording is one of a kind, and it's nothing like it with whiteboards on the market. It's very powerful, but you have to get used to those peculiarities of our solution. Okay, so let me show you one more trick. I'm still waiting for your questions to arrive, but I'll show you how to play, let's say, a set of recordings over different slides. Because if you look at the slide sorter now, we do have two slides. First one with this map of elemental skills. Second with this 13-second long recording. Let me illustrate that for you. I again took a screenshot. And I'll put the screenshot here. So that's my slide sorter. Okay. And here you have slide number 1, slide number 2, length of the recording on the second slide. But what if I have another slide, like slide number 3 with additional recording? I'll do one now. And for this slide to be different, I'll change the background to, let's say, green. And I did that with, I'll show you again. I did that with this button here. It allows you to change the background. So I'm on slide number 3, and I'll add a short recording on this slide. Let's say I'll hit the record now, and I'll just highlight or even show with an arrow this here. Okay, so now I do have a set of 3 slides. How you can play the recording in the project from a very beginning to the very end, because this should be possible if you'd like to, let's say, see your entire recording as it would play when you export it as a movie or as a web video link. So for this, we created this very interesting feature that is called Golden Play, but it's quite hidden. That's why I'll show you this feature now. I'm on the slide number 2. When you see, if you look at the play button on the lower part of the screen, when you press and hold the recording, actually it's not visible in the collaborative mode, sorry. But if you press and hold your play button, it should pop up. There should be a pop-up with Golden Play. And I just realized we don't have it in collaborative mode. But once you pop up the Golden Play, you could basically play the entire recording from the first slide to the last slide. But this is not something you can do in collaborative mode. There's a question about smoothing the recording. So there's a feature for that as well. So let me use slide number 3 to illustrate that. And let's say, is there a movement so far? No. So I'll try to record something new. And I'll use an object for an easy illustration. So this is an object, and I'll move it like this here. Okay, so my movement was captured. I'll play it back. So I created object here, and then I move the object around. And let's say I'm not happy with this movement because it was too shaky for me. I can select this part of the recording where this movement took place and hit this button here. And it should smoothen out this movement. Let me see. I'll try to play it back. Oh, you see? It's a quite different experience now. So you can do the same with, let's say, moving other things as well. You can smoothen out the entire sequence with a lot of objects on the screen, or even smoothen the same sequence several times if you feel that the movement that you have as a result of this is still not polished enough. So that's quite a trick. All right, I'll move to the slide number 1 now to see if there are any additional questions. We still have 5 minutes of our meeting, so I'm happy to answer additional questions if you have some. So I guess this one was answered. This one as well. Yeah. How can I share screen? Oh yeah. How can you share screen? I'm actually sharing screen right now. And this is a very good point because it should be easy to share your screen, and we somehow forgot to implement a button for this. There's a lot of buttons in Explain Everything, but there'll be one more under this where you will be able to share your screen. So when you're using iPad with next version, I believe, there'll be a new option visible here, and it will say broadcast your screen or something very similar. For now, if you want to share your screen, you have to somehow do it manually. I'll show you where it's hidden. So if you look at my iPad, so I moved my finger from the upper right corner of the screen to down to display those options here. And you see record button on the lower section on the left side. This indicates that I'm sharing my screen. And actually, if you have your iPad with the default settings, you won't even see this button. So it's quite complicated to get around this problem and make yourself, make it configure in a way that you can share your screen. In order to do that, you would have to go to the control center and customize controls. So bring it to the canvas so you can have it for reference, because that's actually the way to do it now. You go to the settings, control center, and you have to add screen recording. Once you have it, you can activate the screen recording. Then it will display as screen broadcasting during a session, as I did today. So the full answer to your question is, now you have to, at current time, you need to configure screen recording and then activate it during the call. So that's how you have to do it today. Soon, a button will appear in Share pop-up. Oh, here. Hope that answers your question. So let me see if I answered everything. Is it possible to move objects? Yes, we spoke about that. Can you use input slides from a Google slideshow or use a video clip in an EE video? So you can use video clips as well. I don't know if I have any on this iPad, but you can add them using this menu, going to files. I'll try to look if I have something on my Dropbox, but those would be quite heavy, so maybe that's not a best idea to bring them in. But you can definitely use videos. And as for Google Slides, I'm not entirely sure. I'm sure, though, that you can import Google Slides when you have them as PDF. So with no problem, with no difficulties with layout, you'll be able to display your PDFs. But as of native Google Slides, I would have to check that. Let me see if there are any additional questions here. Not really. So I'll check on our chat as well before we close. Okay, and there's one more question. Will the functionality to use 2 laser pointers at once be coming back? I used to use it with my math videos all the time until it went away. Actually, how it went away? And 2 laser pointers at once, this is what I can do here. You can see that those laser pointers are visible. Let me see how many I can put to the screen. Now there are 5. So Jake, if you could try to specify, or perhaps you observe a different different behavior of the app, and then it would be a bug. But certainly you can use several highlighters, laser pointers at the same time, as you see. Okay, great. Thank you for joining us today. Oh, and there's one more information that Explain Everything team already checked. We can import all Google Docs, although they will not import transitions as they import as flat documents. So yes, you can, although you'll see flat documents as a result in Explain Everything. And there's one more question. Is the Essential webinar live or recorded? It's actually both, because we have it as a video, but also at the end of the video, we hold Q&A section where we answer those questions that appear those watching the recording. So we can answer questions as those that we illustrate during the recording. So if you're interested, I can share you the recording of one of those essentials sessions, but I encourage you to watch that live and then connect with us during Q&A. Fantastic. I'm happy that I could provide you with answers today, and I hope that you like it. Please share with us your thoughts. Here's our email where we'll be waiting for your feedback. And I hope to connect with you soon. I love experience of collaboration and this freedom of everyone creating, and I'll keep this project in my library for later. And I can also share the code to this project to everyone that participated today. So thank you again.